Today on Locked On Rockies, 2 Gold Glove finalists. Is that the right call?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 20th day of October in the year 2022. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, you are in the right spot because that's what we do each and every day right here on Locked On Rockies. Who am I? I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Rockies talk. Been following this team my entire life and bringing you your daily Rockies podcast for a little over 2 seasons now. Today on Locked On Rockies, we're changing course. Yesterday, we were going to talk about Rockies on the move, but we're going to push that aside because big Rockies news happened today as 2 Rockies players are named Gold Glove finalists. One, I think, absolutely makes sense. And the other, unfortunately, I have to put the Rockies homer fan cap aside and say it was a mistake. I don't think Ryan McMahon was a Gold Glove finalist this year. I think Ryan McMahon is a Gold Glove caliber third baseman. I think Ryan McMahon is an elite defender and has elite defensive capabilities, but I don't think leading the league in errors is going to be something that you can do and call yourself a Gold Glover. And I don't think Ryan McMahon would sit there and say that he played his best defensive ball that he's capable of this season. I think why it makes more sense for Brendan Rodgers to be the finalist and really should be in the running, not only in his statistical performance. He was an example of getting better throughout the year. And of course, Ryan McMahon played better defense throughout the year, but he still committed a ton of errors and committed a ton of, and the Rockies in general just weren't as great on defense as they normally are. I think Rodgers, with his improvement on the season, while also not only, the offensive part aside, he was great on defense all year long. I think when you look at the tape and you look what Rodgers did for the Rockies defense this year was much more than McMahon in certain instances. McMahon made big plays. McMahon has defensively, it's pretty awesome to go from Nolan to Ryan McMahon because McMahon is one of the best defensive third basemen in the game. I think that's absolutely a thing to believe in. And can Ryan McMahon win Gold Gloves? Yes, he can. But if we're specifically focusing on this year, a year that was really not great for what has been historically a strong suit for the Rockies defense, Ryan McMahon just seemed the errors are the big issue. Ryan McMahon committed 17 errors this year, and when you compare that to probably the biggest snub when it comes to the Gold Glove at third base being Manny Machado. Manny Machado on defense this year, he committed 11 errors this year, so 6 fewer errors than McMahon. McMahon had a lower fielding percentage overall at third base than Manny Machado did this year. And I'm not just trying to gas up the opposition. I'm just trying to say that this was a down year for Ryan McMahon. He can play better defense. When you look at his line last year, that's when you start looking at the Gold Glove for him. At third base last year, McMahon only committed 5 errors. He had 64 putouts and played 848 innings there. He started in 95 games. Over at second base, where he spent a lot of time in 21, he committed 2 errors. So 7 errors. McMahon committed 10 more errors this season and had a better fielding percentage at third base and second base last year than he did at third this year. He played in more innings, it looks like, in 2021 as well, had more opportunities on defense. He had more assists last year in 2021 as well, as opposed to last year. It's a case where McMahon can go up from last year. And if that means that this is going to be, if this is a Gold Glove finalist performance for Ryan McMahon, then that means Ryan McMahon is going to be able to put up the season that will dethrone Nolan Arenado, because that's not going to happen this year. Probably won't happen next year either, because they'll want to do history and all that stuff, and Nolan Arenado continues to be an elite defender. But the Ryan McMahon is a Gold Glove caliber defender. He's just, I don't think, deserving of the finalist this year. That's just between, I mean, there's just some interesting other things. I mean, when we look at it here, let's take a look at Nolan's stats this year for the on terms of defense. Nolan on defense, let's see. What is this? Okay, here we go. Nolan this year committed 12 errors, 968 fielding percentage there. He had 84 putouts, less innings than McMahon had this year. Spent some time as the team's DHs in 379 chances, but had more starts at third. So the numbers are very close when you look at it, but the errors and being kind of higher up on the error chain is just the issue. And again, this means that if McMahon is able to be a finalist this year, and he can improve in the areas he knows that he wants to, which is errors and better throws and things of that nature, then it should be really easy to see Ryan McMahon winning a Gold Glove here no time. I mean, he could take it next year. I think Nolan's namesake is going to be too much, and the history on the line is going to be too much this year. And Bryant Hayes is a great defender over there at third base as well. I just think they're really running into the popularity contest that really is the Gold Glove. But I want to shift the focus a little bit on who I think we should be talking about as a Gold Glove finalist, and that is Brendan Rodgers. And before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Rhone. If you're like me that has issues with dress shirts, finding one that's comfortable, finding one that fits right, and kind of being able to do multiple things. I have to kind of go from here to there, do this and that. I got to be ready to get a deal done and look good doing it, but also need that breathability. I need it to be comfortable. You got to notice on the show, I'm a comfortable clothes guy. The dress shirt is something that, in my eyes, needed a radical reinvention, and Rhone stepped up to the challenge. Rhone's commuter shirt is the most comfortable, breathable, and flexible shirt known to man, and here's why. Its comfortable four-way stretch fabric provides breathability and flexibility that leaves you free to enjoy what life throws your way, from your commute to work to your 18 holes of golf. It's time to feel confident with a wrinkle-free shirt without the hassle. With Rhone's wrinkle release technology, wrinkles disappear as you stretch and wear the shirt. It's that easy. With Gold Fusion anti-odor technology, you'll be smelling fresh and clean all day long. And on top of that, Rhone is 100% machine washable, so you don't have to take it to the dry cleaner altogether. The commuter shirt can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to Rhone.com/lockedon and use promo code LOCKEDON to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/lockedon and use code LOCKEDON. It's time to find your corner office comfort at Rhone.com/lockedon. I Miller in the chat says, I'm so glad I found someone who does this kind of stuff for the Rockies. I'm so glad you found the podcast as well. This is what we do. We're talking Rockies each and every single day here. And we love Rockies baseball, as frustrating, ridiculous, and as much of an emotional roller coaster as it may be. Welcome into the live chat. Feel free, if you got any questions you'd like to ask, let me know. Just like any of you, if you subscribe to Locked On Rockies, you'll know when we're live. You know when to pop into the live chat. You know when the show is recording, so you can get in here and ask your questions. I want to continue our Rockies Gold Glove conversation with Brendan Rodgers, who we got to do our rankings, but Brendan Rodgers was legit this year, folks. He was really good for the Rockies. He played in 134 games for the Rockies here. He had 639 chances And with the 639 chances, he had 984 fielding percentage. He defensive runs saved above average this year, 22. It's such a delight to watch Brendan Rodgers play defense. He is someone that is only going to get better and really exemplifies what it means for the Rockies to have elite defense. He continues to have he continues to be the guy that the Rockies can believe in on defense, continue a long-standing tradition of really great defenders in the infield, and it's only going to get better. Again, if McMahon improves and Brendan Rodgers continues at this pace, we are going to have two of the best defenders in baseball in all of Major League Baseball. He led the league in putouts at second base. He led the league in double plays turned at second base. He was second in the league in games played at second base. He was first in assists. He was second in errors with 10 this year, but man, he was in third in fielding percentage. He really is going to have a chance to be at this one. I think there's great second base play. But when you look at let's take a look at who the other Gold Glove finalists are for second base. But what's great about this Rodgers being at this spot is the fact that it just exemplifies the improvement he throughout the season. I just am never not going to be impressed by Brendan Rodgers' ability to bounce back from that start, to be able to break through. That's exactly the type of caliber of athlete that you need on your team. And he's going up against Jake Cronenworth and Tommy Edmond over here for it. And this is from the MLB.com breakdown. I want to make sure I'm reading from Andrew Simmon and Thomas Harrigan. They did a nice little brief on every race there for the Gold Glove. Edmond was the NL winner a year ago, although he actually played slightly more innings at shortstop this season. His versatility is reflected in the fact that he's also a candidate at the utility spot. He has two NL West challengers in Cronenworth and Rodgers, a former shortstop prospect who seems to have found a home at second base with the Rockies. You bet he has found a spot with the Rockies. He has been someone that you really, really like to see. And it's, I don't necessarily know. The Cardinals have good defense, but are they necessarily going to be better than the Rockies? Let's take a look here when we're let's look at Edmond's numbers here, because he is that utility guy. I wonder if that's going to be an issue for him. That's an interesting thing. If you're playing, I guess there has to be probably a certain baseline. But if there is a new utility category where you play multiple positions, and looking at Edmond's stats, he played in 2022. He played 622 innings at shortstop and 600. So he played, so just like in that. So he did play more at shortstop than second base. So what's your baseline there? Because when you're looking at it, Brendan Rodgers has more, has better fielding numbers than he does when it comes to playing second base. Then he's got more putouts, he's got more assists, he's got a better fielding percentage, I think. Let me double check. 2022. Yeah, he's got a better fielding percentage. Nope, no, wait, that's there. These things, there's so many things here. Not a better fielding percentage at second base, no, but obviously more innings there. I knew I was going to be wrong at that. More double plays turned there. And if you look, less errors, only 3 errors. The big difference, I would say, here with Edmond here is he only 6 errors on the season for him there. So not as many as Rodgers has with his year. But I guess, how important is the error in all of this? If the Rockies and really you look at the third baseman, most of them, all of them with double digits. McMahon 17. When you have 4 or 5 more, that is obviously a big gap. But it looks like the line kind of gets blurred between a lot of those. I mean, you do wonder how detrimental is the error when you're calculating this. And it's such an interesting award because it's, with how much of it being a popularity contest between all of them. So it's interesting to see that. But again, when we're talking about how important errors are and when they're going to evaluate in something like this, the gap is bigger between Rodgers and Edmond there. 4 errors is a lot, and 4 errors is 4 plays that you can't get back and have major issues with. So it's interesting to see. He does have the lowest fielding percentage out of all of them, and again has more of the errors than them. But the double plays is something to watch. Cronenworth has a fielding percentage this season of 992. 308 assists with 77 double plays. The Rodgers turned over up in the 99, almost 100 double plays turned by Brendan Rodgers as well. So I think Rodgers is going to have a really good shot at that, because if you're going to evaluate and you're going to say Edmond was better at shortstop or second base than those two players, then while splitting all that time and playing less time at second base than those two players, I mean that's kind of ridiculous. So I would assume the award's got to be between Rodgers and Cronenworth, and I think from what I've saw, and of course my biases, I would say Rodgers is the better bet, but Cronenworth's also out there in the playoffs as well. So we'll see if that has an impact. Take this question from the live chat here, and we'll dive into more fun stuff with the Rockies here after this. I Miller in the chat says, who do you think will play shortstop this year? I think if Ezequiel Tovar has a strong spring, he will play shortstop. I think the Rockies might just see if he's ready and to see what happens. He might not necessarily start right away. The Rockies could try and do something, but the Rockies also have an interesting situation with Elehuris Montero, because Montero played most, if not all of this season. I mean, enough this year where they believe that he is MLB ready and he's going to stay with the team. So if the Rockies don't sign anybody, they could easily put McMahon at shortstop, or maybe even Montero at shortstop, to buy time until Tovar's there. But the plan is really just going to be figure it out until Tovar's there. He's supposed to be the future of the shortstop position. He's supposed to be your guy. So what are you going to do in the meantime? You're probably not going to get Jose Iglesias back. I highly doubt the Rockies are really all that interested in doing that, other than just to buy more time in the fact that Iglesias could hit on the road. I think he's going to go try to find a better fit for him in terms of playing a little bit more competitive ball and not having to deal so much with playing at Coors Field. But especially with the Rockies, again, the plan should be Tovar, and to get there, it should be someone that you probably have on the team, because there's other issues that you have. You have ways to fix that and fill in there. Brendan Rodgers should stay at second base. I mean, he has converted to shortstop. I guess he's a converted shortstop, as we just read. But if you win the Gold Glove there, and I know Ryan McMahon just finished there, but Ryan McMahon and shortstop is not that crazy. Even though McMahon's been a second base guy for a good chunk as well. I'm more confident in moving McMahon over to shortstop for the short term and having Montero play third than I am the Rockies trying to bring someone in that could get in the way of Tovar reps, when at the end of the day, that's really should be the focus. He's one of the more exciting prospects. He got a good look at major leagues there at the end of the season this year. So I think the Rockies try to see what happens between Montero and McMahon, see what they can use there. Maybe have some conversation with Iglesias, but just basically fill in the position until they get an opportunity from for Tovar to come up. If he has a good spring, then I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies just start him there, and then you kind of put you figure it out. And you are right. There's a lot of a big need for pitching, and I think that should be where more of the focus of the off season spending goes, unless you can go in one of these big name bats of the off season, which we will talk about more of. But we talked about the bats a little bit here. One thing just kind of said that to kind of circle back on a theme that we've had a lot throughout this week, something we've talked about on the pod, is the home run continuing to play an important role. So that is going to continue to be something the Rockies are going to need to evaluate with any position player that they are putting there, is what kind of impact can they have on the offense. And I think the Rockies offense is better when you can have Montero and McMahon play, because the other thing that you can do as well is McMahon can do some DHing, Montero can do some DHing, and that adds an interesting wrinkle. Whatever moves the Rockies make should be to be able to, it should boost their home run potential, their offense potential. And then I think the Rockies underperformed on defense, and if they still get two Gold Glove caliber or Gold Glove finalists out of a down year on defense, that means they can go up from there. But we'll see what the pitching staff can do as well. Folks, that's going to do for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you like the show, you can subscribe, follow on YouTube, and Angel, your question here real quick before we go. We talked a little bit about that yesterday, but the Rockies should need to be involved in getting after one of the interesting veterans that are there. There's a big, long list. We'll do more diving into more starting pitching, but one name that's kind of interesting is Zach Greinke. The Rockies, could they go and spend big on a pitcher like Rhone? We'll see. But the Rockies should be engaged and involved with getting one or two of the deep veteran pitching class that is going to be heading to free agency this offseason. And if you want to get your question answered in the live chat, just like Angel and I Miller did, then you can subscribe. Like I was saying, that's how you get your questions answered. That's how you can be part of the show. It's how we have a lot of fun here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. And if you like the show, folks, make sure you're going and leaving those reviews and hitting those 5-star stuff. That stuff is a massive, massive help, just like your subscription is. You can follow me at Paul Holden 33 on Twitter. You can follow the show at LO Rockies on Twitter as well. You can stay up to date with more great Locked On podcasts now that you made us your first listen of the day, like the Locked On MLB podcast with Sully, or all things major sports in Colorado, the Broncos, the Nuggets, and the Avalanche. Well, guess what? Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets have you covered. All sorts of good stuff going on there. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies